After all art is experience.
Hello and welcome to The Company Doctor. This week we're doubly thrilled to be joined by not one but two top-tier guests from Groupon in the forms of Chief People Officer Nick Walker and VP Comms, Engagement and Inclusion Emma Coleman. They talked to me and Gary about Groupon's pivot to being an AI-native business, the reticence that sometimes comes with a full brand DNA change, and what the wider business landscape may look like as we all learn to navigate this brave new world. This is Human by Design, AI by Default, rewriting the way we work.
Hey, welcome Nick and Emma. Welcome to the Company Doctor podcast.
Great.
Hi, Gary. Good morning.
Great to have you. Pretty excited actually because this is your third visit. We're really grateful and honoured that this is the third time you've come on. We've had no other guest on 3 times, but by popular demand, we needed you back. But also, we're really delighted to have Emma on. And maybe the best place to start is to just quickly intro yourselves for the listeners.
Maybe Nick, sure. Thanks, Gary. Thanks for having me a third time. It's my pleasure. It's a real privilege, if I'm honest with you. So I've, you know a bit about me already, but just for the benefit of your listeners, I'm now the Chief People Officer at Groupon. I joined here 6 months ago, so January the 1st start date, based in the UK, managing a team globally from the US all the way across to Australia, so a pretty global company. And it's my first time into a public company, actually, Gary, for the last 3 years. So I've spent 3 years navigating some private companies, WeFox, and then more recently Bolt. So yeah, it's good to be back in the public domain. I've been told by Emma to be very careful about what I say because we are a public company now. So I've had a lesson already this morning. But yeah, that's me.
Brilliant. And Emma, welcome.
My intro, much shorter because I've been at Groupon for 14 years. So I'm the VP of Comms for Groupon. So yeah, I've been here 14 years. Previous to that, I was at a tech agency, managing different client accounts, and then moved in-house to join Groupon in the UK, and then have kind of been here ever since. Every day's a school day at Groupon. So yeah, that's me.
That's fantastic. And if you're listening, you're probably wondering why they've got HR and comms. Well, here's the reason. The title today is Human by Design, AI by Default, rewriting the way we work. And so maybe, Nick, just to line up the episode, I know there's some stuff going on in Groupon in your mind, around AI, and everyone's talking about AI, but just give us a really high-level intro to that, and then we can dig in a bit more.
Yeah, sure. Well, listen, first of all, Emma's a groupie. If you didn't know that, Gary, but what we call long-term as a Groupon is a groupie. So
great.
It's a well-defined groupie.
Get the old campfire out.
Exactly. Look, I think everyone's talking about AI, Gary. We're not the only company to go on an AI journey, an AI narrative. From our story's perspective, what really motivated me today to talk to you is really to kind of give some insights in terms of the journey I've been on at Groupon in the last 6 months. I would say that the last 6 months for me have been the most difficult and the most, but at the same time, most enjoyable, but also the most challenging in the last 10, 15 years of my career. And I think there's a story to tell here that could be of benefit to some of your listeners. Groupon's on a journey. We've got a very AI-savvy CEO, Dushan, who's pushing boundaries in terms of how we adopt and how we leverage AI fundamentally within our organization. So lots of companies talk about engaging with AI or adopting AI. We're really kind of thinking about going back to being AI native. Any company that is forming today is going to be building a company and formulating a company in a completely different way to legacy companies are built today. And one of the challenges that we are facing, like all other companies that have got history and technical debt, is really how to rebuild our organization to be AI native from the ground up. And it's a journey. And I think that your listeners will be interested in some of the challenges we've had. And having Emma on the call, for me, just gives you some indication really of the importance of having people functions and communication functions working hand in hand. because it is a journey, it is a transformation, it is difficult, it has pitfalls, has highs and lows. And I think, what's been valuable to me is to have communications side by side with me on that journey. But yeah, in essence, Groupon, global company, a lot of legacy, a rich history, looking to rebuild itself around AI.
Yeah, no, I think it's exciting to hear, and it's great to hear that you're working so hard. You always do. You're a hard worker, but I think one of the good things about you, Nick, is you're inquisitive to learn and apply all your experience from the past, and that's why I think this is an interesting conversation. And if you're looking to reinvent yourself as a company, which is what you're talking about, I've got a question for you, Nick, and then a quick question for you, Emma, also. For you, Nick, now you talk about becoming AI native rather than simply adopting AI. What does AI native from an employee point of view look like? Not the use of technology, but the mindset, behaviors, and the habits, I guess.
Yeah. From a HR perspective, Gary, or from a complete company perspective?
Well, let's start from from an employee point of view, maybe.
Okay. I think, this is for sure the biggest change. And I can say this because I've got some years behind me. Certainly the biggest change I've seen from a tech and transformation perspective, probably since the dawn of the internet era, right, when I was at university. But, how we leverage email or how we use the internet is quite intuitive, or was always quite intuitive back in the day. How we leverage AI and the fact that it's not transactional like the internet, it's actually starting to think for us, is a completely different mindset shift. And for me, it's not just about mindset, it's about muscle. So shifting muscle or shifting mindset is one thing that's relatively possible, but actually having to shift your mindset and build new muscle at the same time, which is what AI is pushing us to do, is a completely different ball game, in my opinion. So it's a big challenge, and the tech is there for sure. We all know the tech is there because we see it in front of us. But how employees engage with that tech, how employees adopt that tech, how they leverage that tech for benefit to them, but also for benefit to the company, is the biggest challenge today. And as I said before, AI adoption will fail with people and HR functions before it fails in tech, because the tech is there, right? People need to adopt AI. They need to trust AI. They need to understand how to work with AI before they can leverage it to its full capability, basically.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And there's so much talk about AI, but people aren't getting into the detail and what it actually means, and that's why I think this is such an interesting conversation. And Emma, kind of related to that, because comms is important, so important in this. Most transformations fail because people hear the announcement, but they never change their behavior. How do you, from your experience, communicate a message so people don't just understand the vision, they actually choose to become part of it?
I think there's a lot of different layers to it. And to just build on what Nick said, and think something that's important is companies now aren't looking to pull people in that refuse to use AI. They're not looking to pull people in that outsource their thinking to AI. They're looking to pull people in that know what to hold, what to protect, and what to use AI for. So I think that's a really important message, and it's one that we're trying to push internally and externally. So actually, we're looking for builders, people that will build, that will review their processes, look at where AI slots into that, where it can make them more efficient, drive productivity. But actually, the human in the room is still vital. And actually, our communication has started from the top. So as Nick said, Dushan is, incredibly AI savvy. I think actually, if he heard me say that, he'd probably say, I don't think I am. I'm still learning. It's moving so fast, probably.
I think we all are.
I think we all are. But, it comes from the top. So, every week or every other week, he's pushing out his thoughts about kind of AI and how it's changing, showcasing where it's being used in the business. But let's be brutal. To your point, awareness is I heard about this. Belief is I've changed how I work. So you're right. And belief is not, communications is kind of, we light the fuse. We show what good looks like. We kind of spotlight the people that are using AI in the right way. We're spotlighting their experience, but also the business outputs and what they're driving, through that adoption. And then people start to look at that and understand it in their role, in their context. And that's where broadcast communication can start, but it fails if you only have broadcast. At the end of the day, working with a manager that mirrors, the expectations, that showcases how to utilize AI. And let's be brutal, leaders go first, and they have to go in public, and they have to let it be messy. If it's messy, they have to show that it's messy. Like, this is where I failed. Because, if you say, we want you to model this behavior on a Monday and on a Tuesday, you say you failed, that's not correct. That's not going to push people into working in the way that you want. And so it's very much leaders modeling the right behaviors, and leading from the top, but also managers understanding it and having that trust and belief. And that's tough when change is scary. And let's be honest, this whole journey is scary for a lot of people. It's hard. You can't go onto LinkedIn, Facebook, anywhere without kind of seeing, stories around AI. Yeah, exactly.
Well, not just stories about AI, but also the impact of AI on jobs, right? There is a fear factor around AI. And as Emma said, like what I appreciate about Dushan, and it's a message to any CEO really, is to lead from the front, but also to be open about the failings you've made whilst you're adopting AI. And that's something that Dushan does every week. He talks about some of the progress he's made, but also some of the mistakes he's made on that journey. And we talk about, in our company now, we talk about three things which are quite interesting actually, guys. So you've got speeding fines and parking tickets. You also got speeding boats. So we want people to make mistakes, right? We want people to push boundaries, to challenge the status quo, to adopt AI, to really leverage AI in areas that we haven't done before. And we're okay to actually issue speeding fines. That's fine. But what's not good is to be issued a parking ticket. We will not allow someone to have more than one parking ticket. We want to push them. So speeding fines are good. Parking tickets are not good. And one way that we're pushing the approach internally is to look at speedboats. So processes within the company, and as Emma said, builders versus engineers, right? Engineers run the platform, builders challenge the process and the workflows. And that's why I'm so uncomfortable, because in HR, we're quite a boring function. We haven't evolved that much over the last 20 years, really. I mean, there's a few kind of initiatives out of some of the big American corporates that we leverage and we're excited about. But generally speaking, it's still quite a dull function. We haven't evolved. And we are being pushed now to completely rethink about how we operate and the workflows we operate within. And that's why I feel so uncomfortable, because 25 years of being hardwired into how HR operates, I'm now being asked to think completely differently. So Speedboats is all about having much leaner teams, 2 or 3 people operating across a process or a workflow, rather than teams of 11 or 12 people. And that is actually allowing us to move a lot faster, allowing us to challenge things a lot easier. And this concept of the handoff tax, right? Where if you have that many people in a process, when you move from function to function in the process, you always have some handoff tax, right? You always lose something in the flow. And by having 2 or 3 people focusing on that workflow or operation or the workflow or the standard operating procedure, it's much tighter, much quicker, much faster. And you don't have those kind of anchors around your neck restricting you from thinking differently.
No, it's really changing. And something that both you and Emma have said has conjured up a question that I want to ask both of you, really. It feels like that we've reached a bit of a tipping point, because for years, organizations created value by having better systems. But what you're saying is it feels like it's the individuals that their knowledge and use of using AI better is changing the way that we work. So my question is, it feels like your biggest challenge isn't teaching people AI. I mean, that's people will find out how to use it within the restrictions. But it sounds like 3 strikes and you might be out, but without getting parking tickets and fines. Is transformation today then more about psychology than technology? For an HR point of view?
Yeah, I think so. Look, you've got to give people the opportunity, right? You've got to give people the tools. And we pride ourselves at Groupon of giving everyone access to Claude or to an AI product. We will manage the risk at a company level. You've got to manage the risk at a personal level, right? So, and Gary, there's no better way to learn something than actually do it, right? So we're encouraging people to use the tools, like I said, to take some risks, and we'll manage in the background. So yeah, I think it is a bit of psychology there, because as Emma mentioned earlier, all you read in the press, on LinkedIn, in news articles is AI taking over jobs. I think someone said to me once, don't fear losing your job to AI, fear losing your job to someone else who's using AI better than you, right? So
Nice.
there is a bit of psychology there, and like I said, it's a mindset shift and a muscle build. So yeah, there's a bit of psychology to it, I guess, and I think the communication strategy, the leaders leading by example, the leaders allowing people to be able to make mistakes and to push boundaries is essential to make sure that they feel safe in an environment where there's such rapid change, because it is rapid change. Like, I feel uncomfortable, and I think I've got quite a good level of resilience.
Yeah.
But that's been tested over the last 6 months.
But I think it's good. I mean, Emma, I've got one question related to this, and then I want to move on a bit. But the question, based on what Nick has just said, is, fear spreads faster than strategy. When people hear words like AI, automation, reinvention, some immediately think of redundancy. How do you acknowledge that those fears honestly without allowing them to dominate the narrative?
I think honesty and transparency. I think you have to be able to say, we can't tell you that this isn't going to have an impact on a headcount number, but actually I think the narrative and the message is, this is a huge transfer of power from the systems to people. And so actually how you then work to kind of educate yourself. So I'll use case in point. If you'd have asked me a year ago, like, can you build an agent? Are you running AI agents? I would have looked at you like you were talking a different language, honestly. And I would have been fearful and worried. I got access to Claude. I've got Claude Max. Like, we've been allowed to kind of utilize that. I've built agents that are helping to support my work. And I've enjoyed that process, and I've lent into it. And I haven't had anything other than a Claude license. And so I think what helps me, and when I talk to other people about it in terms of the fear, and I can't remember which CEO said it, so I might have to look that up and follow up. But he was asked, who's the smartest person you know? And his response was, I'm not going to give you a name. I'm going to tell you that the commodities are now the kind of the tech piece, the kind of the process. Actually, now what's becoming necessary and of higher value is knowing that you can see around the corner about what's coming, being in the room and understanding the context, knowing the business. It's not necessarily that tech piece like the process we spoke about earlier. And so the humanity element of it is, for me, maybe more as a concept, where I lean in and I say, right, well, actually, that is a superpower in the age of AI, is kind of understanding the context of the business, being in the room, being able to kind of circumvent, look round the corner and see what's coming. And so I think the narrative around, those human strengths that we all have are actually what helps us to become builders. Because actually, if I understand the process from end to end, AI can help me to streamline it. And we're not, we're closing the execution gap, not the judgment gap. And the judgment piece is where we talk to our teams and say, this is the value that you bring, and this is where we want you to utilize AI and build. You have to be honest that the job roles are changing under our feet. Like, we're rewriting job roles quicker than, the jobs are changing. But actually, if you can move quickly in that environment and you can develop, then I think there's a lot of opportunity within that, within the realm of building with AI.
I agree, Gabe.
And what's
people own a judgment, and I think it's all about how you leverage AI how you use information from AI to make informed decisions. That's going to be the game changer, right? So, as Emma said, nothing can beat you being in the room. And whilst AI owns the process and the workflows, we own the judgment, and it's that judgment piece that is really important to all of us.
I agree, and I really relate to what you've just covered, Emma, and I think a lot of people listening will as well, because there's a switch from technology to humans, or humans are in the mix, and there's still a massively important part of that experience, and sometimes there's a politics. You can't bring people with you by AI. You have to do it in a human way with the psychology, as Nick was talking about.
Did you see the bill? There was it got quite a lot of coverage, but those billboards in San Francisco where it's like "Stop hiring humans." Did you see that? But the irony of that was that the guy said, it was clickbait. We just wanted to get the attention. We've been actively hiring the entire time.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
So I think it's about being honest about what roles are changing and where the impacts will be, but also where the opportunities are. Like and enabling people and trying to push people in the right direction with the right behaviors and leaders modeling those behaviors to show where those opportunities are that people can start to maneuver into.
Totally agree. And, it's interesting because the way you both coming across is obviously is something you're learning as you go and you're developing, but it's well thought through. You're articulating it very clearly because it's not an easy play. And I think everyone's, in a state of change.
So Nick, welcome back to the George Clode Grill, and Emma, welcome for your first time to the George Clode Grill. As Nick will tell you, it's not a terrifying experience. I'm just going to ask you a few quick fire questions based on the conversation that we've had thus far and a little bit of research that I've done on the company and on you guys. So starting with you, Nick, from an employee perspective, which do you think is the more valuable skill right now, prompt engineering or critical thinking?
I would say prompt engineering, because I still find there's a lot of sloppy AI work happening. And if AI work is supposed to drive informed judgments or informed insights, then you've got to fix that at the very beginning. Judgment is important. How you judge the data that's coming to you, for sure, that's critical, because the human layer, that judgment layer, is really important. But if you're looking at bad outputs from bad inputs, i.e. bad prompts, then that's problematic. So I'd say spend the time ensuring that, you invest the time in good prompting. I see way too much sloppy AI work, 15, 20 pages of AI output which is just systematic of just bad prompting. So some of my prompts I spend up to an hour on, George. Can you believe it? An hour of my time actually creating a prompt, but the output is much richer. So yeah, I'd say prompt engineering is critical.
Yeah, that's a great answer. And Emma, what is the absolute worst AI buzzword or corporate bit of jargon being thrown around in business currently?
Intersection.
Oh, I totally agree with you.
Intersection.
Yeah. It's not up to me to agree or disagree, but I feel very strongly that I agree with you on that one.
Right.
Great answer. This podcast sits at the intersection of sort of
currently the intersection of HR and communication.
Yeah, well, exactly. Everything's at the intersection of something else. Nick, you mentioned speeding fines and parking tickets, so I think I may know the answer to this. But when it comes to this sort of pivot or the transformation that you've talked about, is it more important to move fast and break things, or protect the brand at all costs?
These are good questions, George. I mean, ultimately, you want to work both in parallel. But I would say, given where we are and given, how things are moving externally and, what the competitive landscape is doing in every business, not just in ours, I would say you've got to break some eggs to make the omelette. And I think in terms of where we are as a business, within reason, that's something that I would be supportive of.
Nice. Great. And Emma, again, just talking about the pivot that we've talked about, as you said, it's the leaders who need to be that example and need to show that fallibility as well as the successes. What would you say is the most impressive or surprising behavior that Groupon managers are demonstrating to show that they're really driving this AI native culture?
I think fallibility. I think people just saying, I don't get it.
Mhm.
It's really powerful. If someone says to you that you report into, I don't quite understand this, I need to go and find out, I need to go and educate myself, then actually that makes people just, okay, I don't need to be the person that is the best at this in the room. I have the opportunity to go and learn. I have the opportunity because we're all doing it together. So being happy to say, I need to go and understand this. I don't get this yet. We need to learn. We need to do this together.
I got,
Yeah, it's very unusual.
George, I mean, I did that with Dushan. I said, Dushan, I'm struggling here. Like, I've been here 6 months. I'm driving a transformation, not just an AI transformation, but also a people function transformation. I'm struggling. He said, that's fine, Nick, that's fine. I'm happy that you're uncomfortable. That's a good place to be in. But hire to your weaknesses. Go and get yourself a builder. And here I am. I never thought, as Emma said, 2 years ago, 1 year ago, that I'd have a builder on my team driving some change. But now I do.
Yeah. And if you'd said, I get this, guys, don't worry, everything's fine, you would have got yourself in a bit of hot water, I imagine, a bit further down the line.
Well, that's the stress, George. I was like, I think that, again, message to all people leaders out there is, this is definitely a challenging environment. We are not engineers, right? We're not wired to think the way that builders and engineers are thinking right now. So I think it's okay to be open about, where we are and where our challenges are and how we're being challenged as individuals. I think be open about it, be transparent about it. My biggest fear was holding my team back. It's like, I'm holding my team back because I just don't get it. And that was my biggest fear. But yeah, be open about it, be transparent about it, and build to your weaknesses.
Good stuff. Final 2 questions for this sort of slightly longer quickfire round than I'd anticipated, but is gold, so we're not going to edit any of this out. So this is a question to either one of you, whoever feels happiest to dive in. What is the single hardest habit for a legacy manager to unlearn?
I think going to the line of, this is how we've always done it. This is the process. This is how it works. This is the flow. Like, it's very easy to kind of be in that process framework. And actually, AI means, hold on, we've always done it this way. But what if we never did it this way and we had this tool? How would we redesign what we're doing now? And I think process is something that is really comfortable, isn't it? Like, kind of, we've done it this way. And let's be honest, the new way isn't always better. That's where judgment comes in. But actually not relying on the old process and actually being the leader that says to people, I want you to kind of throw that out the window and look at how you do it from the ground up. And sometimes it's more work. It is that judgment call, but I'd say it's that.
Nice. Great answer.
I'd say from my perspective, I'm allowed to answer, George.
Absolutely.
2 points from my perspective. I think one HR point, again, for my HR followers out there, I do think that there is an over-reliance in HR on the systems that we use, on the work days and the success factors, and all the other systems that exist out there. We are so over-reliant on those. And I think that for me, over the next couple of years, the challenge is going to be for HR leaders is to unpick the over-reliance on those systems, that we shouldn't have to rely on them anymore, that there's other ways of doing things other than, the processes and the policies that the systems often push on you. And the second thing from a leadership perspective is, I think Emma's right around process and policy, but it's also around how your teams are structured. In HR, I can guarantee in HR teams, most HR teams are structured 80% the same way. And for me, it's about how you build a team with a completely different mindset and muscle, but also in a different structure than what you typically would have before.
Nice. Great answers. I have one final question for you, Emma. Comms based with a sprinkling of AI. Are you using AI to write internal comms currently?
So we So we don't use it to write, because I think if you say we use it to write, it sounds like it's just, an agent spitting stuff out. So nothing goes out internally that isn't reviewed by a human. So I have agents, I have personas. So all of those things that we had within communications and marketing, you'd have personas, and you'd have to learn how your leaders articulate themselves. We've got tools to help us and move us quicker to that. But everything is human read and human sent. So, but also from a comms perspective, I do geo scans. So I look at how Groupon is showing up, in the different LMs. I've got agents that do my media scans for me in the morning. I looked at LinkedIn signals. I use them to help track kind of success stories internally and how we can start to showcase all the stuff where actually I wish I could cut myself into 30 different people, because there's all this stuff happening that I want to know about. That's where, and it is by no means perfect. So please, this is all kind of development, but it's starting to kind of enable that, and it's starting to help kind of, streamline all of those processes and some of that fact finding, and just make us more efficient. But, from a comms perspective, it has to go through a human. It has to be, because you're in the room, you understand the business, the people it's going to land with. But actually, and I'm going to do a plug for comms people here, even though I know this is a HR podcast, but actually, if you think about, comms people taking a brief, thinking about the different personalities kind of in the room, thinking about the potential pitfalls, the positives, the negatives, comms people are innately prompt engineers. That's kind of what we've been doing in our jobs, for years now. So actually understanding that and utilizing AI to get the most out of what you're doing, that's what we're doing. And that's what we utilize it for. We're doing what we've naturally done, the same craft, but we're trying to supercharge it more with the technology.
Yeah, we love comms people here.
I'm never sure which Emma's going to turn up when I have a meeting with her. It's scary.
This is super, Emma.
There's so many.
Yeah, and actually, so super that she's managed to answer both parts of that question in that first answer. So, well done. You've survived the George Cloak Grill. Thanks so much. And I will pass back to Gary.
I've got a couple of questions for you. If we invited you back in 3 years' time, what would success actually look like? Not in terms of AI projects completed, but what people inside Groupon may be saying, doing, and feeling. What would good look like after 3 years if we invited you back?
Gosh,
sorry,
3 years in the current environment is a lifetime.
Or even take me out 18 months.
I think you're going to find an organization which has much more structured workflows and operating processes. I would say that AI has become the norm, not the desire that we have today. So it becomes completely embedded in how we operate, in the same way that you use Google Mail or Google Chat today. AI is completely embedded. It's baseline stuff. I think that the availability of data will be a lot richer, and we'll have leaders that are being asked to make informed decisions based on data. And the last point would be really leaders that are leading by example. So, where leaders today are struggling with AI adoption, like any leader, build your team around your weaknesses, right? So I would say that, every team has probably got a builder within it that's pushing and challenging them on how to operate their functions. But yeah, in essence, AI becomes baseline norm.
And what about yourself, Emma?
I agree. I think I'm going to probably answer this from my 14 years of Groupon brand tenure. But I think for me, it would be that we can literally say we've met our mission, that AI has enabled us to meet our mission. And I'm the comms person, I'm going to spout out the mission. But our mission is actually it's not anti-tech, but it's like we want people to do things in the real world. Like that's what Groupon's about. If you don't use Groupon, that's what we're about. We want you to go and have that dinner in the spa and do the things. But actually, but actually at the end of the day, if you think a spa in Chicago versus a water park outside of Milan or whatever it may be, they're different SKUs. And so what's exciting about AI at Groupon is that we think that can supercharge meeting that mission, is that people do more things offline, have more experiences, because every one of those experiences in every market's a different SKU, basically. And actually, it's dependent on the weather. It's dependent on when it's payday in that market. It's dependent on your individual preferences. Like, there's so many factors that factor into kind of whether someone gets up that day, goes out and does something. And actually enabling us to do that better, and having a business that's times 10x or whatever it may be, that's the exciting thing kind of for me, because that's the mission that we've obviously been pushing internally and externally for so long. And AI suddenly enables that, because of all of those processes and those options, and the data that sits underneath it is huge, and AI suddenly starts to bring the ability to meet that mission so much closer than ever before. So I think for me, we're that one step closer, or 2 steps, or 3 or 10 closer to kind of meeting that mission.
That's brilliant. And it's really quite inspirational. When you think of it in those terms, it's like, it's not pushing you away, it's bringing you in. I really like that. Okay, I've got one last question for you. Are you ready for it? It's a big one. There's a quote that says, culture is what people do when no one's watching. In an AI native company, what's the one behavior you hope becomes so deeply embedded that nobody even thinks about it anymore? Nick, you go first, and then maybe Emma.
Oh, I'm going to use one of our own operating principles. So sorry to kind of spin the Groupon
Kool-Aid
operating principles on you, but basically, yeah, we actually rewrote our principles to help support and enable this AI rebuild. And we got one which is called speed over comfort, where, like I said, it's a speeding fine analogy, right? So AI is enabling you to do things that you didn't have the opportunity to do before, or to do things a lot faster and a lot smarter than you did before. So for me, it's all about speed over comfort. People be able to make decisions, informed decisions, take risks without fear, and moving, like Emma said, moving things forward at a multiple faster than our competitors and faster than how we're operating today.
Amazing. And what about yourself, Emma?
I suppose this is maybe it's too similar to Nick, but it's self-learning, self-development, self-direct, like the value of, I can sit every day and learn something new. And that's quite empowering. Like, for me, AI has helped me, because I'm building, I'm coding. It's just like, I'm a comms person. I like words. I like to talk to people, like words on a page, the tech side of things. But it's liberating. So I think self-learning, of like that ability to kind of dive into a problem, teach yourself a new skill, fix something that's been frustrating you, that element of AI and that self-empowerment and self-learning, I think, is incredibly powerful. And that move from the system kind of directs me to, I can now start directing the system. I know this is better. I've known the answer, but I've just not known how to do it. And so I think that, for me.
Brilliant. You guys have nailed it. And I took a few notes while you were speaking, just to pick up a couple of things before we close out. Now, it's a big change you're making, and you're very passionate about it, but it seems like it's really well thought through. You're rebuilding a brand. You're becoming AI native rather than AI enabled, what you're saying. And there's a shift from systems to individuals, which a lot of people probably wouldn't have thought about. Moving away from worrying about systems to helping people, enable people, and then creating a culture where everyone reinvents how they work. That's not an easy thing to do. And from a comms point of view, what you talked about, Emma, is you're the engine for behavioral change rather than broadcasting information. So it's really inspiring. So thanks, guys, so much for coming on. Really appreciate it.
No,
and
pleasure.
Wish you every success, and hopefully see you again on number 4, Nick.
Thanks, Gary.
Thanks, guys.
Gary.
In fact,
Have a great one.
It'll be my AI alternative.
Maybe your AI person. This isn't really Nick. It's deepfake.
Thanks for listening, and a massive thanks to Nick and Emma for sharing their insights with us. It's a hot topic, so do join the conversation on LinkedIn and Instagram, and keep up with all the Company Doctor developments and episodes at thecompanydoctor.com. That's it for now. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.